You're listening to the Inspire Excellence podcast, recorded at the BVA headquarters, with your hosts, Kevin Miller and Tommy Alquist. Each episode is focused on shedding new light on different perspectives to create dialogue that inspires excellence.
And welcome to the Inspire Excellence podcast. Tommy Alquist, Kevin Miller. And, I don't know really how we can define our next guest, Tommy.
I'll tell you how we can define him. One of the coolest dudes on the planet, man. And he's going to be, I wanted to have him on for a while. I'm lucky enough that Korey Hall, former BSU standout, we'll get into that, former Green Bay Packer, caught Aaron Rodgers' first touchdown pass, but now very, very successful in the business world and happens to work here at BVA. And so I get to see this guy every day. But we've wanted to have him on for a while to talk about a lot of things. I'm really excited, Korey. Thanks for being on today.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
Well, I got to pass it back to you, Tommy.
So where do we start with you? Can we start somewhere? Anytime I'm around someone like you, I get to see Korey's work ethic every single day. I get to see the way he treats people. I get to see the way he does business. We couldn't be more happy. It's exactly what we like to have here because, you're around people like Korey. It makes you better, right? So I would love to know a little bit more of the story. Growing up in Glenns Ferry, tell us a little bit about what that was like, your past. Tell us about your family growing up and what drove you to become an athlete, become who you are, and just a little bit about your past.
So Glenns Ferry, and I'm sure a lot of people have been there, but it's the second biggest city in Idaho. There's about 1,100 people there. And it's a small farming community, hour east of Boise. And I grew up, I have two older sisters. And so we grew up on a small farm there north of town. And I think that's probably just Tommy mentioned the work ethic part of it. Growing up, we didn't really watch a lot of TV or have a bunch of video games, stuff like that. We were always outside and helping my parents do stuff, and we all had chores. And I remember, I think I was like in third grade, and me and my sisters moved hand lines all summer, twice a day. It was, as far as entering the workforce, I'd pretty much do anything besides that. So you definitely build up a good work ethic, and I think my parents it made a really big impression on all of us kids, with that aspect. But I think just kind of all my travels from then until getting into sports at Glenns Ferry and kind of all the way through collegiate sports and getting a degree in college and playing pro ball and then kind of coming to the workforce and essentially starting at ground zero. I think, it's not just one thing that builds a work ethic. I think it's the drive to want to be good at whatever you're doing. And along the way, you learn how to work hard. And I think, no matter what it is, you kind of take that mentality to all parts of your life. And that's what I try to do. And there's days when I wake up and I'm not feeling it, but there's other days, a lot of the time, I like to get up and get after it.
Sure. Is that how you would define living every American boy's dream, except those who want to go to the NBA? From our days of playing with Nerf footballs, from Glenns Ferry to the NFL, how did you, and now starting over, being successful, what's the consistent force in your life? Is it the work ethic?
Yeah, I think work ethic has a lot to do with it, but I've always been really competitive. I think competition is, as far as my strengths, it's probably one of my top strengths, just, going into whether it's playing football or academics or I still need some work on the ping pong table here. I figured out showing up at BVA's. Pretty good ping pong players, but
you can tell how competitive.
Pretty competitive too, right?
So, no matter what I'm doing, I feel like competition is, growing up at our house, for instance, a small example, like you beat my mom at cards and she's she's angry at you. Like, so it's through all of our family. Like, we always playing board games and cards and stuff like that. Our whole family's pretty competitive that way.
Right.
So.
Can I ask you a question about, so if you look at, I've been around you a little bit now, your forearms are like most people's thighs. So I don't know if that's moving all those lines of irrigation or what, but at what point, because you're Glenns Ferry, right? So I don't know what division of high school that is.
It's really small division.
A super small division, right? I mean, but you play for the football team there. You obviously excelled there at that level. Tell us about your journey to Division I football, which is already a huge leap from, first of all, you're Idaho. Now you're Glenns Ferry, and you've been blessed with some God-given gifts and talents and a body that's strong and ready to go. But how much of it was work? How much was it just kind of was there? And at what point did you think, I think I might be able to make it? I mean, I think we just watched Van Der Esch with, here we are, Riggins to the Cowboys, but you're the guy from Glenns Ferry to, the Green Bay Packers. So at what point did you think in your mind, or did you always think, I've got what it takes to play in the NFL? Or is that something that came later?
It was something that came later. Early on, like I love playing sports and football, basketball. I wrestled a couple of years and ran track, and I didn't play like organized football until 7th grade. Like I didn't do the Optimists or anything like that, and I always loved to play. But actually, my dad didn't want me to play, and he doesn't believe that like kids' bodies are developed enough to until you get into like the teenage years that to start playing contact sports, and which I think in hindsight it was kind of a blessing in disguise for me, just because when I did finally get a play, it was like finally now I get it, because all my buddies went through Optimists and all that. So I think as far as coming from Glenns Ferry, it's a really small town, and we had a good group of families there, and my class had a good group of kids that were, really into athletics. And one of the coaches, Bill Brock, he's actually at Middleton now. He coaches football out there. But I remember we were in 7th grade, and he would get up every morning. We had a group of guys, and we would go in and lift weights before school. And so like 6:30 in the morning, we were there all the time. And that was kind of the start to figuring out what it took to be good at sports. Like, I remember after that first year, you show up and like, I'm a little bigger than everybody and a little stronger than everybody. And you realize, the hard work is what makes you better. And there's, I think to an extent, people are kind of born who they are. There's people are taller than other people, and some people are born and they're just fast. And some other people have to work really, really hard to be fast. And I think I'm somebody that I had decent athletic ability, but definitely put in a lot of hard work to early on to get to BSU and then on further than that. But I think as far as being from a small town, it's crazy when you get to a level like when you're at the Packers locker room, and everybody comes from somewhere, and you'd be surprised how many small town kids there are that, Jordy Nelson from a small town in Kansas. And, I'm trying to think of, like you said, Boise State players that are coming out of Fruitland and Riggins and those types of places. I mean, everybody has their story, and I think it's just about putting in the work and trying to be the best you can at whatever sport you're doing.
Korey, what's it, most of us work 9 to 5 or put in 12 hours, but could you take us through a typical NFL workday?
It kind of depends. During the season, you got to be a boy dog to be an NFL football player. The off season, pretty easy going. During the season, like a typical week, you play the game on Sunday, right? And usually after the game, you come in and Mondays are like a half day. You come in and work out and watch the game tape and make corrections. And then Tuesday's your day off. And then Wednesday is when it really kind of starts all over again. So it's like a 6:30 a.m. workout, then a morning meeting, and then you break into position meetings, and then you'll have a couple-hour practice, 2.5-hour practice, then lunch, and then you watch more tape of that practice in the afternoon. And they would usually cut us out of there by like 4 o'clock or so. But by that time, you're pretty worn down mentally and physically. And the thing about the NFL is and even college, it's not that, any person off the street could, that works out regularly could go through an NFL practice or an NFL day at work or even college for that instance. But I think it's being able to do it every day, day in, day out, and be good at it and be consistent. And there's a lot more than just, I made it a day. It's, like NFL training camp. You made it a day and you have 2 more weeks. And it starts to wear on you, and mentally, probably more than anything. So
that was back in the day when they had double sessions, right?
Yeah, and I think just with a lot of the new rules and regulations, it sounds like training camp has really eased up a little bit, but which has kind of been the case ever since I was in high school. We went from, I remember my freshman year in high school, we went from 3 a days and then 2 a days, and then you can only have a 2-a-day every other day, and so I think a lot of it is driven by keeping players safe and healthy and that type of stuff. But it's definitely gotten easier. I think training camp has gotten easier all the way around. But
I'm going to probably be all over with questions, but you made me think of something. When you go from Boise State to the NFL and you change positions, maybe talk a little bit about that. You often hear people talk about the speed of the game being different. Did you notice that the level of athlete, the speed, the strength, and then just the quickness of the game? Tell us a little bit about that.
I think for me, it changed at every level. Coming out of Glenns Ferry, by the time I was a senior at Glenns Ferry, and I was just because we were such a small school, and you just don't get like even the caliber of high school athletes that you get up here in Boise and some of the 5A schools up here and around the state, and so kind of a small pond type of situation for me, and hey, I'm pretty good and I got a scholarship and I get off the bus at Boise State, and it was a humbling experience for me because I'm no longer one of the better kids on the team. I'm lucky to be on the team and just basically starting at ground zero again, and just kind of kept my head down. I redshirted my first year at BSU and was able to kind of get in rhythm with things and start to get some reps in and working hard in the weight room and a lot of running and trying to stay in shape that way. But and then the next year when I was actually a redshirt freshman that I had a chance to start, that's when I really started getting some serious playing time and like in camp, and the game was just, it moves so fast. But then after you become a smarter player, everything starts to slow down for you. And I think definitely for me, it clicked probably like halfway through my freshman season. I started as a freshman, and until about halfway, I remember like one of the games where finally it was just like, now I get it. And so once you reach that point and you can focus on the things that help the game slow down for you, I think it's definitely an advantage. And then as a linebacker, really, by the time I got to be a senior, I got to where I felt a lot more comfortable at my position and the game. Like I kind of could see things happening before they happen. You see people going in motion, and from watching a lot of tape, you can see, tendencies, and all right, it's third down and they're in I formation, and the odds are they're probably going to run these 2 plays, one or the other. And so when you can get to a point where you're starting to think about stuff like that instead of where do I line up, then it's a lot easier to make plays. And then going to the NFL was kind of a whole nother experience. There was a couple things there for me. It was you're going to a whole another level of or caliber of football, and then also switching positions was really tough for me. But I think as far as the caliber of players, you just think about if you take there's like 1,600 active roster players in the NFL, and you figure the one or two or three top players on the best college teams in the country that are getting hand selected to go be part of that group of people. And you no longer have, two great linebackers and our corner, he's okay. Like, everybody on the field is the best at what they do on every team. And so that's part, it takes some getting used to, like in high school and college, you run down on kickoff and I'm going to the ball and I'm going as fast as I can. In the NFL, you run down on kickoff and you watch where you're going because somebody might pull your card. So there's just differences, but yeah.
Back to Tommy's point, one of the best business books that the people in lifestyle books, Who Moved the Cheese, or Who Moved My Cheese, or something like that. How did you go? You're going from BSU linebacker, changing positions. This most storied NFL franchise where most of us would say, well, this is what I know, this is who I am. And you're doing it at the highest levels and, you've got your head on a swivel.
It was kind of the same. I think at that point I had went through that experience a couple of times where you kind of show up first day and it's like, wow, how am I going to make this team? That guy's way better than me. That guy's way better than me. And you reach a point where don't look around. Just keep your head down, work hard, do what the coaches tell you to do, and try to be the best football player you can be. And when the smoke clears, you're either going to be part of a team and help contribute, or they're going to make the cuts, and you have to figure something else out. And that's the mindset. You can't be worried all the time about, if am I going to get cut? Or you have to focus on your job, your responsibility, and how you can effectively help the team. I think about that a lot, coming into BVA, first day on the ground, don't know exactly what my role is going to be. I have an idea, but what starts to be really similar and real familiar is we have a group of guys here that they kind of come from all different pieces of business and, from medical and construction and leasing and banking, but they're all part of this thing that's bigger than every one person. But we have a pretty awesome team here. And I think it's really similar when you get on really special teams, like the year we won the Super Bowl with the Packers or BSU when we won the Fiesta Bowl. We have guys that are the best at their positions. We have coaches that are kind of bringing this whole thing together, and no one person could do, like, I can't do what Tommy does and Holt can't do what I do, but together we're BVA and we're building some pretty cool stuff. And so I think that's something for me that when you start to pick that up, you kind of learn how to be a team member. And it's not necessarily, I don't have to throw the ball, catch the ball, kick the ball. I have to be the best fullback I can be and know my responsibility every play and try to get my job done and trust in the plan and that it's all going to work out the way we planned it to work out.
It's awesome. I love that team thing, and certainly it's strategy, it's planning, and then it's execution, and it's being part of something bigger than yourself. I'm going to change the subject a little bit just because I've been dying to ask you this question and purposefully haven't asked you till today because I can't wait to get you on this. Mike McCarthy or Aaron Rodgers? A lot of controversy coming up, recently. What was it like? You were there with Aaron. You see them kind of coming out now about all of the behind the scenes conflict that they had. Mm-hmm. Give us a little glimpse into those egos, maybe the relationships, because I'm sure there's always that between great players and kind of the quarterback on football teams. And what did you see, and what's your take on what's out there?
That's a tough one for me. Obviously, it's been all over the media. I have a lot of respect for both of them. When I was there and the time I spent with McCarthy, he's a great guy. I thought he was a great head coach. Obviously, can't say anything bad about Aaron Rodgers. He has the tools to potentially be maybe the best or the top three best quarterbacks ever. And it's unfortunate that they couldn't figure out a way to coexist. Even when I was there, I think before the Super Bowl, neither one of them were big enough to finally say me or him type of situation. And I think that's where it got finally. But I think the root of it is probably, and rightfully so. I mean, Aaron Rodgers has maybe one of the best arms ever, and he wants to throw the ball and he wants to be aggressive. And I think Mike McCarthy's a little more like old school. Grew up in Pittsburgh. He wants to be the smash mouth, run it up the middle football team. And the reality is, maybe the two of them just don't. I mean, they just don't belong on the same team. Like, because Aaron's. He wants to run the West Coast, spread them out, run and gun, no huddle offense, and they're just and. Mike wants to do it different, but I just don't think they're built that way. They're built to go 5 wide and throw the ball and play that game. And a lot of people do pretty well when they figure that game out. The one downfall of that strategy in football is when you get into the playoffs and you have to travel late in the year. Like I played for the Saints for a year, and they used to say we're the best show on turf, and they would run, spread you out. Drew Brees could, he throws out routes on 3rd and 1, like their quarterback sneaking it. His percentage completion is really high, but I don't think that they're a team that would be very tough if they had to go play outdoors in Chicago in the first week of January in the playoffs, and that's kind of the risk you take. I mean, those are the things that decide games in the NFL is location sometimes. Like the teams they're faster and better on turf, and some teams are made to be out on grass in 3 inches of snow and running the ball 3 yards at a time up and down the field. So I guess back to the Aaron and McCarthy.
You've been running out the clock on this one.
Well, it's hard because I have so many different thoughts on it. It's a tough one for me to answer because I can't say bad things about either one of them. Besides, I just don't think that they can coexist.
That's awesome. There are so many fans of the Green Bay Packers, if not the most beloved, one of the most beloved teams in the NFL. 2 quick questions. What is Lambeau Field, Green Bay like to live in? And what was it like for you as an individual, your first check and it said Green Bay Packers on it?
Ooh. Well, my first check didn't come soon enough to answer that question. This is a true story, right? So I don't have 2 nickels to rub together by the time I graduate college. And okay. So I get drafted, but you don't get paid until after like mini camp. Like, so you don't get any money from getting drafted. And so I go out to mini camp and my coach, all of us rookies, is like, here's the deal. You fumble the football in practice, you have to pay the pot $100. And I had like $400 at that time. And not joking. And so I'm in practice and I catch this ball and we're like in a 7-on-7 drill and I run down the field, like down the middle. And the big thing was, after you catch the ball, finish. And this cornerback came up behind and knocked the ball. I'm like 40 yards downfield and it knocked it out in front of me, hopped one time and I grabbed it back and I was like, turned around, went back to the huddle and nobody saw it. And so we're watching tape after lunch of that practice and they have a side angle and a long angle and the side angle didn't show it. I'm like, oh, thank goodness. And the long angle, like literally right before they cut the tape off, you could see this guy hit it out. It didn't even show it landing. He hit it out. And so it went to the next thing. And then my coach rewinded it and he's like, 3-5, that's a fumble. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So next day I had $300 and
you held onto the ball.
Oh my goodness. And so finally, to answer your question, it was pretty awesome, like getting a signing check or whatever. And that happens right after mini training camp. So.
And Green Bay, what's the city like?
It's like a bunch of like just hardworking, kind of like all the movies and everything you see. Like the Packers are like the main thing going on, and game days, like everything pretty much shuts down, and they have some really great golf courses, and that's about it. So.
How about a couple of other quick ones that I've never asked you? What biggest takeaway from the Fiesta Bowl?
Ooh.
What's that one memory that sticks out to you from that incredible game?
Well, truthfully, it's in overtime. I missed a tackle on Adrian Peterson. He scored, but we won't rewind that tape.
Right. Yeah.
Cut that off. So, no, I think at the end, just the way our team battled at the end of that game, it's one thing to be in like a shootout and they score, we score, kind of one of those things. But we had that game locked up, and they came back and they go up a touchdown, and like mentally for our team to come back from that and like Chris Peterson to like the way he handled that and motivated our guys in overtime to do what we did there. That was probably, looking back on it, that was probably the most impressive part of the game. Obviously, being part of my last game as a collegiate athlete, being part of one of the greatest games ever.
I can't even imagine being on the floor on the field for it. I was in the stands, and I don't know if you know Kent Nawahi, but good guy, and he got some tickets from someone that were really great tickets, and so I'm there with me and my son, who at the time was about 12, and we're sitting next to Kent, and he was so nervous about the game that he wouldn't watch the play in the overtime. So he would sit down. He's a big Polynesian guy. Yeah. So he'd sit down with his head down in his lap, just praying for something good to happen. And then as soon as the play was over, he'd stand up and he'd grab me or my son and shake us and say, "What happened? What happened? What happened?" And then he would do it again. And so it's this memory of me and at one point I couldn't even find my son, and he was one row in front of us. It was just this, it was the greatest sporting event I've ever attended in my life. And I know it was so incredible. And so to remember you there and watching that game, and what a memory. And then you got the Super Bowl. What's your memory of the Super Bowl? What would you say about that? I mean, not many people that have had, think of these sports experiences you've had.
Sure.
No, I've definitely been fortunate to be on some really awesome teams. The Super Bowl, obviously, you reach the pinnacle of what you do, right? The pinnacle of football, and to be part of that and to win, it was awesome experience. It started off, it's kind of funny. So we played in the new Dallas stadium, and it's got a jumbotron, like the Paylocity building size. And it's so like opening kickoff, and I'm like one of the lead special team guys. And we started on defense, and so run or do kickoff, we did kickoff return. And anyways, at one point early on in the game, I'm sitting here and I'm kind of looking up at the jumbotron. It's like it just kind of
watching it on TV.
Yeah, like I'm sitting on the bench, and all of a sudden I hear this like punt return, and they're like, "We only got 10." I'm like, "Oh, punt return 10." Whoa! And I ran out there and like I got out there in time. And I'm like, wow! Like I'm sitting there talking to myself, like, "Get it together, dude! You're in the Super Bowl. You're watching the freaking jumbotron on the sidelines." And so then finally got clocked in, and obviously the game was awesome, but the best part of that was at the end of the game, the confetti falls, and my wife and family were all down on the field. And I remember at one point we just sat on the bench on the sideline and just kind of took everything in and just watched. Like nobody was talking or anything like that. Like we were just sitting there just watching, and that was probably one of the best feelings as far as sports goes that I've been a part of.
Back to Tommy's point about the Fiesta Bowl, you were coached by Chris Peterson as a young man several years ago. Now you're maturing, you're becoming a man. Your thoughts on Chris Peterson?
I think Chris Peterson's amazing. you're probably never going to hear me say anything bad about that guy ever. There's actually a story. I have a lot of the reason some of the things in my life happened for me were because of him. A lot of people don't know this, but so part of the reason I got drafted as a fullback, Chris Peterson and Mike McCarthy GA'd together at Pittsburgh University way back in the day. And pretty sure that Chris Peterson called him up and laid it on the line and said, I was his guy. And I didn't take one offensive snap in college, and they drafted me as a fullback in the 6th round. So I don't have any bad things to say about Chris Peterson.
No, we were looking for a good thing, but that's it right there.
Yeah. It's one thing that, as I get older and have been in different places and on different teams and, BSU, Green Bay, New Orleans, ESI, BVA, I think that everything we do is about relationships, and it's, the relationships that you make places, and you never know, like later on in life, like the Chris Peterson, like how that could help you out. And like, I'm not somebody that wants to burn a bridge anywhere I go, just because you never know how life's going to turn out and what's going to happen. And I think the industry we're in now with development and construction and a lot of I think part of why I'm good at what I do is because like subcontractor relationships and being able to work with people and be fair in a business that's tough. And we have to have a lot of hard big boy conversations, but we can stick to the facts and be fair in a lot of those. I think everybody seems to come out on top, and even if they don't, I think everybody can still respect each other, even if you do have a disagreement. But.
What about your mom and dad? I haven't met them yet, but they're just so proud of you for everything you've done so far in your life. And tell me what it's been like for them as parents through this.
I think my dad's like this. He's just like an old school farmer in Glenns Ferry. He likes to sit at his house, doesn't like to leave the farm, like coming to Boise's like driving to New York City for him. And but I think I know they're proud of me. And I think while I was at BSU in Green Bay, I think there was a lot of fun times. There's, just in the community in general. My mom was like semi-famous downtown. She has a salon, like a hair salon downtown Glenns Ferry, and so she, I think she got more publicity than I did, but I still, we're down there quite a bit and at our place in Glenns Ferry, and get along with them really well. And same thing, I have 2 older sisters, and so that part of it's good. Family's real important to us, and it's going good.
We hear so much and we cheer so much about the impact, the collisions, physical game, big time, fullback, linebacker, blocking. Can you share with us that experience and how it took a toll on you, Korey?
I think running down on kickoff in the NFL is about like getting in your car and like just purposely hitting a light pole doing about 30. It's with no seatbelt on. it's yeah, you got to watch where you're going. No, it's definitely like the fullback, linebacker, lineman. All those positions in the trenches. They have a short shelf life. I'm good buddies with John Kuhn. For a while I was giving him crap about. I'm like, are you just going to play forever? Because there's no way. When I retired, it was because I was just starting to get banged up and get stingers and had a couple mild concussions, and I didn't want to be that guy that was just hung on too long and was just banged up and couldn't do anything after that. You think about it, at that time I'm 30 years old, and you still have a lot of life left that doesn't involve football, and to try to stick it out for another year or two and kind of get to that point, is it worth it? And for me, I after I got released from New Orleans, I went out to Arizona for like 2 days, and I went through their practices, and I was just banged up, and my wife Jen was pregnant at that time, and I just decided, do I want to come out and have her live in a hotel for the season, and I'm banged up, and is it worth it? The money's great, the lifestyle's great, but there's got to be a point where it's time to move on, and it's weird. I was talking to Jen on the phone when I was sitting in a hotel in Phoenix, and I was like, I think I'm done. And she's like, good, come home, honey. I was like, yeah, I'm coming home. It's I called my agent up and like, hey, I think I'm done. He's like, no, you can't do that. I'm like, well, I started explaining it to him, like, well, I can't play the game. And he's like, no, this is unheard of. I'm like, why am I explaining this to you? Okay, whatever. I'm out of here. I guess you'll send me a voided contract when I get home. But yeah, it was just time for me.
Well, Korey, I think it's there's so much to learn from sports and how that translates to business life, and now we have you here. So much to learn from you too through all your life lessons. We appreciate being here. We'll ask you one more question. I'm interested to hear what you say, but what inspires you in your life now? Where do you get your inspiration from?
I think right now, actually, my wife and I were talking about this. We're in a really good place right now. Just everything. Our kids are starting to get old enough where we can go do stuff, and we have got a little cabin a couple of years ago. We enjoy doing that and being outdoors, and then like career wise, I think like I was at ESI for 6 years and kind of moved up through like from a PE into a project manager, and I like, it's rewarding to me to be good at my job and try to be the best at my job, and I think part of that for me is looking around. People read like self development books and go to seminars, and one thing for me I like to do is like you go into an environment and like a job site or a sports team or coaching or something like that, and you look at guys like that guy's killing it. What's he doing better than everybody else? How is he setting himself apart, or how is she setting herself apart? And like just identifying, it could be something completely different. Like you look at somebody like Kristen Armstrong, what's she doing right now that draws people to her, and why is she so successful at what she's doing right now? And that's kind of the way I try to get better at what I do is identify strengths in other people, and like, you know what, that would work for me. I want to try that. And I think in the last few months, taking the job with BVA here and working with Tom Senior on the construction side, I'm really excited about this opportunity just because it's essentially, we're building this construction side of things that it's almost like a ground up, so to speak. But there's still a lot of stability in it, and we're working with a great team, and we have whatever support we need. And so it's every day you're still learning. It's a little bit different than what I was doing as a project manager. It's like really, we just hired a kid yesterday actually, and I was telling him, it's essentially, you're a true project manager. Like you're going to budget it, you're going to bid it, you're going to run it, you're going to do the closeouts on it, manage the change orders, and that part of it's cool. And I think we're still at a point where we need to develop some infrastructure to be as efficient as we probably can be. But right now, that's what's driving me is being part of this team and having the opportunity to help build something like BVA.
That and ping pong.
Yeah, my ping pong game needs a little help.
As competitive as you are, wait to 6 months. Yeah, it'll be a different story.
Yeah. I was watching Holt the other day. I was like, okay, that's how can I apply that to my game? That's
Well, Korey, thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me on. It was awesome.
And we want to thank everyone for listening to the Strive for Excellence, the Inspire Excellence podcast. And remember, strive for excellence, everyone.
You've been listening to the Inspire Excellence podcast. We invite you to find something that inspires you this week. Join us again for our next episode.